Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. Got a really fun video to share with you guys today. Took my Bronco pre-runner build out to a local outdoor track and ripped it around a bit and just had so much fun with this truck. I really love the way this truck turned out. It handles great. It has just enough speed. It jumps well. And it just looks so cool doing it. Absolutely love driving this thing. If you want more information on this full build, I will share a link down below to my playlists where you can find all the other videos I have on this vehicle. But this is essentially a crawler-based build, an Axial SCX-10-2 based build that uses the Proline twin I-Beams kit. I am running a double clutch long travel rear suspension setup that uses some Proline Power Stroke 5-inch travel shocks, which is really the key to getting any performance out of these builds. Is you really got to get more suspension travel than it would have in kind of like the crawler configuration. This is running on 3S 3200 kV motor. If you want all the specs on this, again, check out my playlist. I won't go too deep into the details, but I am running a TRX4 rear axle with a portal delete, and I have remote locking differential on this. Pretty much this entire video, I'm running it with the diff locked. I just think it worked a lot better in this rough terrain. You can see here, it's getting some good traction. See a little bit of roost coming off both back wheels. And it's pretty good at acrobatics here, as you can see. So now, at this point in the video, I want to talk about suspension setup, because you're going to see, I feel like for that type of terrain, the suspension is really perfectly set up. It's nice and quick and fast moving, but on the jumps here, it's definitely a little bit under damped, right? It's kind of blowing through the travel, bottoming out. You're getting a little bit of a bounce with the jump. A lot of times it even does like a slap wheelie if I land and get on the power fast enough, which is, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of fun and it looks cool, but it's not ideal. You see there, you get like a lot of bounce, but I feel like I don't drive in these conditions all the time. I don't always come to a track with big jumps, so I don't know that I want to tune the suspension specifically for this, but maybe slightly heavier on the fluid, and I'll come back and test. We'll see how much track time I get with this truck this year. A lot of times this track is just like underwater and too muddy to run on, so we'll see. So this build is a little bit bigger than your typical twin I-Beams build based on a crawler, because I did stretch the wheelbase a little bit and I made it quite a bit wider. This is a short course body that is meant for like a Traxxas Slash, so this is about the same size as a Slash in terms of wheelbase and track width, and I think it really helps with the handling on this build. You can see that I can rip this thing pretty good around this track, and I'm not having many issues with it rolling over or flipping. So really, I feel like the width just adds so much to the stability on this. I've driven a two-wheel drive Slash around this track for hundreds and hundreds of laps, and while it's fun, it just can't compete with this truck. This thing is so much better to drive than a Slash. Just for the way it looks, the kind of the scale realism, the way it handles, it's just so much more fun. Slash might kind of edge it out a little bit in overall like lap times, just because it is just independent suspension and it's made for things like this, but this truck by far is a million times more fun to drive. So I did this filming right after doing the video with my Kyosho Outlaw Rampage Pro, and I do talk about the comparison a little bit toward the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. I am in the future going to have a third build, also an I-Beams build, a little bit narrower, about the same wheelbase, but a little bit less track width, different body, different build. It's the aluminum knockoff kit from AliExpress. And it's built up a little bit different, so we're going to see how all three trucks compare. I'm going to come here, do a little shootout, and then take it to a few other spots, a nice big sand pit, and just run them all and see which setup actually works the best. In terms of speed, I'm trying to keep all three trucks about the same maximum speed. This truck just has a regular copy of an Axial 3-gear trans. I'm running the biggest pinion I could fit, which is a 22. You can see here it has pretty good speed. It's perfect for this track. Good acceleration. On my second I-Beams build, I did pick up the SSD high ratio transmission, which adds, I feel like it's going to add about 4 miles an hour top speed. So I might still do that on this truck just to get a little bit more wheel speed at times, but I think overall that's right in that range. 20 to 24 miles an hour seems to be about right. I think any faster, you really start to overwhelm this front I-beam suspension. It does only have so much travel, and I don't care what shock you put on it. You know, you are limited in travel. You're going to be limited to how fast you can go over rough terrain. But overall, this thing works extremely well. I'm really impressed with this. Now, my Kyosho, the last time I clocked it with my GPS, I think it hit 29. So I've been running that thing. I dropped my dual rate down because I think 29 is a little too fast for that truck. I do need to gear it down a little bit, and for the fact that I kept blowing the tire off of the bead lock. So I'm gonna have to glue those things up. Now my other twin I-Beams build, I think it's hitting about 24 miles an hour, but that does have the high ratio trans, and I'm running a higher KV motor, but I'm running that truck on 2S. So I have all these trucks done up differently just so we can kind of get an idea of what kind of works best, you know. I don't want to build them all identical to each other. And of course, the Kyosho is a completely different truck, but I was just really curious to how a full custom build would compare against a kit. And at the time when I bought that kit, the Kyosho, I paid like $216 for that kit. So by far, that's the best bargain of all of these things, and it's super fun. And handles great, does all the stuff you want it to do. But I gotta say, if you want to do a custom build, the Proline kit, I need to experiment with one other thing. So with the aluminum kit that you guys are going to see in the near future, the aluminum I-Beams kit, it comes with a carbon fiber chassis, and the thickness of that chassis is it throws things off, I'll say. It just sits so much wider. The swing links for the front steering sit about 6 millimeters further apart, and I think that's what's responsible for a lot of the issues I had with the setup of that truck. So I think I'm going to experiment at some point. I'll test it as is, but I want to experiment by putting this same chassis. This is a Hot Racing SCX 10.2 steel C-channel chassis, and it sits a little bit narrower overall. It just tucks in from like edge to edge. So I'm curious to see if I put this chassis on that truck, if we can really get the same level of performance. That truck doesn't seem to have as much suspension travel up front, and I think it's because of the spacing on the entire front link setup. But we'll find out. That's why I want to put these things head to head and just give everything a good test, and I'm just real curious. But yeah, like I said, this truck, so much fun to drive. I love watching this thing, especially in slow motion. I hope you guys aren't sick of seeing this in slow motion, but it looks so cool, man. I wish I had like some Dukes of Hazzard music to play during these slow-mo jumps, but I think I'd get flagged for copyright material here. So just imagine that in your head while this truck is jumping. And right here is the crooked landing that broke my rod end on my upper rear link. Okay, so after all that fun, let's do a little damage report. Jumps that are inarguably too big for this truck, technically. Unfortunately, tested my brazing out here, snapped that off. This was the first bumper I ever made, though, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway on that one. And I broke, that last jump, I broke a rod end on my upper link. No big deal, just a plastic rod end, pretty simple to replace. Other than that, I'll take a good look at everything, but even the front axle stayed nice and true. No issues there. Let's just see. Rear wheels are nice and straight, didn't bend any axles. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. I had a blast with both of these trucks today. It's hard to decide on a winner. I don't know if there's a clear winner. Both of them had some minor issues. I kept blowing the tire off of the bead on the Kyosho. That's a pretty easy fix, though. I think I'm going to look for some metal beadlock wheels, or I'm just going to glue the tires to these plastic wheels. That would be the ultimate solution, but I have a feeling it might handle a little bit better and be a little bit more stable with some slightly heavier metal beadlock wheels. So I might give that a try before I glue these on. I do like the tires. They're pretty nice. They look nice in scale, so they work pretty well. I'm going to keep those. I think the Bronco, with the diff locked on the back, had a slight advantage. It was just getting better traction, and you could kind of steer from the back a little bit easier. I did run it with the diff open for a little while, and in some ways it was slightly better in the turns and maybe a little bit more straight line performance, but ultimately I liked it with the rear axle locked. Maybe on the Kyosho, I need to go to a heavier diff fluid on the rear, just to get a little more locked action, and that might help out with that truck. I don't know. I can't decide on a winner right now if I had to put these two up against each other. This was just kind of like a test run. I am going to get my third pre-runner out here soon, and I'll do a little track run and then take it to a few other spots and just see. But right now, I feel like slight advantage to the Bronco. It was a little bit more fun to drive. I think it's the weight, the heavier weight, just keeps a little more planted, and I don't know, something, maybe just the locked rear diff really made the difference. Tires are probably slightly grippier. They're about the same firmness. I don't have either of these vented, and I think these do hook up a little bit better, so slight advantage there. Suspension wise, you know, I don't know. The Kyosho definitely jumped straighter and flatter and landed a little bit better. I think the front shocks are tuned better on this than on this, and I think you get a little more travel. But man, very close, very close. I'm amazed that this thing did as well as it did, considering that it's based off of a crawler. Ultimately, the most important part is that I had a ton of fun with these today. I didn't think they would do that great on an actual track with decent sized jumps. These jumps are pretty much too big. For the scale of these, they would be like pretty crazy in real life. But yeah, it worked out. So that's a wrap on this one, guys. Stay tuned for when I get the third truck out. It's getting there. I need to work on some bumpers for it before I take it out. Front bumper here really saved this thing a lot. It did take some damage, but I think it saved the body quite a bit. So I don't want to run my other truck and destroy the body on that before I, you know, get some protection for it. So stay tuned. Very soon I'm gonna have that thing out and rip it and see if it can even compete with these two. These two were so much fun today. Really happy with these.